everyone! Welcome back to another Free Roaming Friends video. Today we are going to compare two hotels. We're going to take a look at Pop Century at Walt Disney World and Cabana Bay Beach Resort at Universal Studios, Florida. We've stayed in both and we thought that in a lot of ways they hit a lot of the same marks. They were very similar, and so we thought that they would be good to compare for you all, so you would know which one you can get more at and which one you get more bang for your buck. So without further ado, let's get started.
Okay, first we'd like to talk about the rooms. That's definitely the most important part. So as a general rule, the rooms at Cabana Bay were bigger. We stayed in a standard size room at both Cabana Bay and Pop Century. So at Cabana Bay Universal, the rooms are bigger, so there's more places to put things. But Pop Century uses their storage really, really well. So there are also lots of places to put things. I felt like at Cabana Bay, we could have had another one or two people in the room with us and it would have been okay. But at Pop Century, it was already kind of crowded with just the two of us. I think both rooms were they were well done. They were clean. Yeah. Everything was in order. So they're both really nice rooms. But I did feel like at Cabana Bay, I got a better bang for my buck. Yeah. As far as space was concerned. The space for me was more important than having a bunch of little cubbies in a smaller space.
Right. At Pop Century, you have, in most standard rooms, you have a queen bed and then a queen-sized Murphy bed that pulls down out over the table and chairs in the room. And like Garrett said, we have stayed there, just the two of us, but we've also stayed in one of those rooms with three of us. And there's a big difference when there's two people staying in there and you don't need that extra Murphy bed than when there's three people staying in there and you do. When you put that Murphy bed down, it is tight. Tight. So I agree with you. I think that I would prefer just more space overall than space used efficiently with little cubbies.
I think that coming back from the parks where you've been in crowded lines all day, and yeah, I liked it better.
Next up is price. So this is extremely important to look at when you're looking at staying in a hotel. So for Cabana Bay, the prices range from around $140 a night to around $254. And the $140 mark is going to be more during like January, February, what's normally considered as your low times or your less crowded times. And then the $254 mark is going to be around holidays, spring break. Spring break is always very crowded at the parks. Summer actually is going to be a little under that $254 mark. Typically, all the other months out of the year, it's gonna vary between that $140 to $254 a night mark. And then at Pop Century, your prices are going to range from $168 a night to around $343 a night. Yeah. But that, again, that $168 mark is going to be during the low times, and then the $343 is going to be spring break, holidays, things like that. And then the rest of the year it's going to go between. So for price, Pop Century wins out for sure. So there is a pretty big gap of around $100 difference between the two. So Pop Century wins out in price again.
Usually. We'll talk about when you're staying on property a little bit later, but I think part of the price built in is how you're planning to get to the parks. If you're planning on driving your car to the parks every day, you might find it more beneficial to your pocketbooks to stay off property somewhere. But if you're wanting to rely on that Disney transportation or the resort transportation at Universal, you might want to consider that as well. On top of that, if you don't have a car at all and you're looking at Uber costs or Lyft costs, so those are things that you'll want to factor in when you're planning your vacation, because some of that cost might be eaten up in ride shares or rental car fees. So definitely something that would play in as far as price and would possibly influence our decision to stay on property at a peak time where we wouldn't normally. It would just depend.
Yeah, there are certain costs, other costs that you might not be thinking of that could make up for that $100 difference.
The next thing we need to talk about is the amenities, restaurants, bars, pools, anything that can be considered an amenity. For Pop Century, it is laid out just like all of the other value resorts at Disney. There's an arcade, there's one giant dining hall, there's a pool bar, and as far as dining, I mean,
that's it.
That's it.
I mean, pretty much.
At Cabana Bay, there is, I think we had 2 pool bars, because there were multiple pools. There were 2 pool bars. There we had a giant cafeteria style main dining area, just like you would have it at Disney, very similar in their layout as well.
Yeah.
I didn't see an arcade. There might have been one.
But they have a bowling alley that also sells food.
That counts. There's also a fitness center at Cabana Bay that Pop Century doesn't have, and really Disney value properties are lacking
in that
for all of them. When you're looking at pools between the 2 hotels, at Cabana Bay there was one pool that was only open on the weekends, but that could have also been because of the time that we were visiting. And then the other pool was open the entire time. And they did have adult hours or quiet hours on those pools, didn't they?
I believe so.
And so that was really nice. And the pools seemed like they were bigger. We're not big swimmers, so
we don't
for us it doesn't really matter. But for you that might be a big thing. It'd be a nice day to unwind at the
pool.
The pool. At Pop Century, they had a pool for each area. So if you want to see more about that, click up here for your Pop Century video, or is it up here? I think it's up here. Click up here for your Pop Century video.
At Cabana Bay, there is a 100-foot water slide as well.
I didn't know that.
And there's also a lazy river.
Which I also didn't know, or I would have brought some trunks.
Which is really nice. So just quickly to recap, Cabana Bay has 2 pools. One isn't necessarily open all the time, but they have 2 pools. The lazy river, the water slide, and then they have the 2 outdoor poolside areas where you can get food and drinks. They have the Galaxy Bowl that is with the bowling alley. They have a fitness center, and then they have the main big dining location and 1 souvenir shop. They also have a bar in the lobby.
They did have a bar in the lobby and the souvenir. That souvenir shop was really nice.
It's very big.
It was a nice souvenir shop at Universal, and I liked it better than the souvenir shop at Pop Century. Sorry, go on.
It's okay. And then just to recap Pop Century, they have 3 pools. A couple of the big areas, main areas, share a pool. So they have 3 pools, the arcade, the souvenir shop, and the 1 big dining area. And then they do have 1 poolside bar where you can get some snacks and drinks.
It's right outside the main area.
Yes.
The main lobby, whatever they call it.
The Hippy Dippy Pool is where it is located. So, proximity to the parks. This is very important when you're staying on property because you want to get there fast. You don't want to have to wait forever. And especially if you're not driving yourself, you need options to get to the parks. So, at Pop Century, you have the Disney buses, and you have the Skyliner, which is a wonderful addition. It will get you to Epcot and Hollywood Studios. We found much faster than the buses.
Yep, and you do have to transfer at the Caribbean Beach Resort, and that will take you to either the Epcot line, the Riviera and Epcot line, or to the Hollywood Studios line. And it feels sometimes like you're waiting longer. Sometimes, but
the ride I think is so much faster.
It just goes so quickly. So like when you're even though you're far away from all of the parks or further away, it's easier. to get around a lot. And the Skyliner's my favorite way to travel. If they had that to every park, I would just be floored.
The Skyliner is definitely a huge perk of staying at Pop Century. Then at Cabana Bay, you have the bus transportation and you have a walking path that a lot of the other resorts share with it. It's about a 20 to 30 minute walk if you're taking your time, but it's very nice. It's shaded and it is a very pleasant walk.
There is a little bit of an incline because you're essentially winding around the streets in the other parks, and it can be frustrating at times too.
A little bit.
Because you think that you could just make a straight shot and be a lot quicker. We took the walking path most days. It was free, obviously, and it was a pretty walk. And depending on the time of day or night that we went, there weren't very many people on it. At the end of that walking path, you can go straight into security before you enter City Walk. Yeah, you enter security. It's right outside Jimmy Buffett's at City Walk, and they send you through security there. And it's always a shorter line than the main thing at the hub. The main lines at the hub were, while I thought for the most part efficient when we were there. Yeah, I thought it was.
We very rarely waited at that security area on the walking path. The only downside to that is after you spend all day at a theme park, it can be tiring.
Do you want to walk another mile and a half, or whatever it was?
Yeah. So in my opinion, I think that Pop Century wins out here with proximity to the park, or as far as getting to the park. So just because of that Skyliner.
Pop Century, I disagree. I think the option of the garden walk or whatever, the garden walk helps the Universal resorts stand out from the others, because there's that pathway that goes straight into the parks. You don't have the lines.
That's
because
true.
you're spending your time on the walking path that you would be spending in line in the morning for security. So I think
That's true.
I think I would prefer that.
That's true.
We already spoke a little bit about dining, but that's also an important factor. Dining is going to be easy at both places as far as your picky eaters are concerned. They all have standard cafeteria style food at both big cafeterias at the properties. If you're wanting something more luxurious, you can't really get that. I was impressed with the healthy options that were available at Cabana Bay versus the healthy options that were available at Pop Century. Both had them, but I thought Cabana Bay's were better priced, and I think there was a little bit more of a selection.
Yeah.
But I did think that Cabana Bay's food, the food prices at Universal were a lot better priced than the food prices at Pop Century. Cabana Bay does have the extra Galaxy Bowl. It's part of the bowling alley when the bowling alley is open, and you have those couple other options of the pool bars if you want as well, and they would be serving food like you would expect there. So the quality of the food is about the same, and the price is a little bit different, but you got what you paid for. You're staying in a value resort with both. No frills.
Yeah.
Get everybody fed, and there's something for everybody there. So I think that's also a good thing.
You do have more options at Cabana Bay with the Galaxy Bowl and, the two outside eateries. I didn't remember this earlier, Cabana Bay has a Starbucks.
Cabana Bay has a Starbucks. Pop Century doesn't, does it? Do they?
Does not.
Yeah.
Pop Century has the one dining place and then the pool.
Like, I'm not a huge Starbucks drinker. I brew my own coffee. There's a way that I brew coffee on the road, and that video we could also link up here. But if I have to have Starbucks, then
it's nice to have it available.
It's good to have it available if we would need it.
If you love Starbucks, Cabana Bay would win out. The next category is the extra perks that you get for staying on property. So at Cabana Bay, you get into the parks an hour early. So if the park opens to the public at 8 o'clock, then you can get into the park at 7 o'clock, which is awesome.
Getting into the park an hour early, and especially at an alternate checkpoint,
Yes.
For us, on the walking path at least, that was huge, and you could get to some of those attractions quicker. We still, like Hagrid's motorbike will still fill up very fast, and we'll do a video on how we try to tackle some of that later.
Yeah.
But you still have rides that fill up fast in both of Universal's parks. But that extra hour is huge.
At Pop Century and all of the Disney resorts, Value to Deluxe, you can get into the parks a half hour early. So if it opens at 8, then you get in at 7:30, which is nice. Not as nice as an hour, but it's something. Then also for both, you want to make sure that you look at the websites not just when you book, but also after, because a lot of times Disney and Universal will both release like package deals where you get like your room and your tickets together for maybe a discounted price. And even if you book before that deal starts, you can call back, at least at Disney World, and I'm pretty sure you can do it at Universal too, but at least at Disney World, you can call and they will apply that deal if it meets the criteria to your stay as well. So that is an extra perk that you're able to kind of change and get that deal if you can.
So anyway, for the extra perks, I think that probably I like Cabana Bay. I like being able to get in an hour early. Versus Disney's a half hour early. That was kind of nice.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with Cabana Bay.
Proximity to the parks also falls into this category as well, and your ease of getting in and out.
Cabana Bay.
So again, Cabana Bay.
The rooms, Cabana Bay. Dining, Cabana Bay. I don't know. The last thing we need to talk about is theming. Disney themes all of their resorts, and they do not disappoint with Pop Century. If you watch our Pop Century video, you will see that there was the other side that was supposed to be Pop Century is now Art of Animation, but that was supposed to be the decades that we didn't get in Pop Century. But you've got, what, 3 decades?
You have the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yeah.
At Pop Century.
So with that, on the areas that are sharing a pool, you see these larger than life statues of characters that we know and love from that time. So and not all Disney branded characters either, which I also thought was kind of cool.
No, some of them aren't characters at all. Some of them are like for the 80s and 90s section, they share a computer. So it's a giant computer.
It's an old laptop.
Yeah. And then in the 60s, they have like the flowers and the go-go dancers and things like that.
And all of the stairwells are themed, the shell of the stairwells are themed for something from that era as well. So for the Cabana Bay Resort, I got the theming of like the Cabana Bay style thing and the old 50s style thing, but it wasn't in my face like it was at Disney. And I kind of appreciated that. But it was also noticeably less themed.
Yeah.
They did have like the section that we stayed in, I think it was Americana. We had a hotel style room, and others in that block or others at that hotel, at that resort, had the motel style where you step out of your room to the outside world. Whereas in the hotel style, we step out of our room into a hallway.
Right.
So Cabana Bay had both, and Pop was all that motel style, and that's not really a theming thing so much as that's the way Disney does their value resorts. And that I think that with theming, this might be the only time I've chosen Pop. I think Pop Century wins out.
As Garrett said, at Cabana Bay it wasn't in your face, the theming. And in the rooms at Cabana Bay, they had like Vivo 5 shampoo, conditioner.
Oh, yeah,
they had like some of those, like they had a really old little clock that I remember like my grandma or aunt having a long time ago. And so those little things were cool. And the color scheme was very retro, like the lights and things like that. So the theming in the rooms was a little bit more, I would say, than maybe in the outside part of it. But at Pop Century, your theming in the bedrooms wasn't quite to the level of Cabana Bay's rooms, but I think the rest of it just makes up for it. The theming's over the top.
Right. And a lot of the theming at Cabana Bay too was on the inside.
Right.
The lobby was more themed than
The outside.
the outside. Where like at Pop, the inside lobby area had a lot of theming to it as well, but it was, you were very clearly walking into a cookie cutter Disney resort that was built at that time. So
Yeah.
in conclusion, my winner overall stay, I'm choosing Cabana Bay Beach Resort at Universal Studios Florida.
It wins out in pretty much every single one of these categories as far as room size, price,
You gotta say
dining options,
You gotta say it's better than Disney.
dining options, amenities. Yes, it does. It wins out on all of those marks. So Cabana Bay, yes, Cabana Bay is the winner.
Thank you for watching this week's video. We hope it's helpful for you. As always, leave us a comment if you would like. We're happy to respond to those.
We enjoy talking to you.
It's a fun process for us. Now I think we got some flights to book.
Woohoo!
All right, off we go.
Okay.
Have a great week.
Bye, guys.
It's time.
Okay.
Hello. It's time for another Free Roaming Friends fantastic video.
Oh.
Let's look.
I love you too.
Video like this.
Okay. Hello.
Don't.
What? Okay, next up is proximity to
Wow. Wow. So every blooper is me. What does your shirt say?
Cleared for launch.
You are cleared for launch.
Cleared for launch. Here we go. Launching into the next category.